when people know I'm agnostic, like when I teach in class and it becomes relevant. For example, I teach gender and sexuality course in my department, and of course, when you're speaking of gender and sexuality at the RH school, you have to sort of tell people open up about what religious position they're coming from, and I have to open up about mine. And many times, sabihin nila sa akin, I'm sorry ho, if I speak about what the Catholics are saying. And I'm like, hindi naman ako dating Katoliko, wala akong galit sa Katoliko. Di ba? Ang pinakagalit sa Katoliko, yung mga dating Katoliko. But I also have become very angry at the church. So I'm going to bash them now. That was the moment the reproductive health. But some sectors of the church. It's very interesting that my work in the reproductive health bill, and you read Nolly and Feeling, it's like nothing has really changed. May Jose Rizal please come back, please. Because when you ask many of even the leading lights, like golems, he will say, oh, I'm doing this because I respect the priest. And my mother told me to obey the priest. And this is where, again, I'm saying why I would call it like fractured empiricism. Because the other reason the church is throwing up all these bogies that we have to keep fighting against is they don't want a moral discussion. Because if we did have, we could just, if the church just said, okay, we've lost the scientific argument, but this is still our moral argument, right? Then it's fine, because we could say, okay, those of you who can still believe in a moral position that doesn't take into consideration science, fine, go with your lives, fine, right? Or if the church would not claim that, we could have other discussions like, is it really good to trade off the life of this fertilized egg with the life of women who would die without the contraceptives? Is it really good to trade off that? Is it really right that if you give adolescents contraceptives, they would be encouraged to do sex? And the studies are showing that that's not true. And even if they did, can we have a discussion about what is wrong with adolescents having sex? Right? But they don't. They will not. They will keep giving us this false scientific arguments, because I think the really egregious part of what the church is doing is it's saying it will not discuss its moral position, insist it has the right to dictate the moral position of people, and take the moral high ground. And that leads me to the issue of secularism in society, because I think it's okay to have religions bring in their wisdom in the crafting of social policy. That's not my problem. As free thinkers, we are also, as feminists, we also want to bring our values in the crafting of social policies, right? The issue is the church is playing dirty in the secular field because it refuses to talk in a language that all of us can understand. Because if you want to present your wisdom to a secular nation and help in the crafting of social policy, you have to do it in a language that people understand. And the language that, well, the Pope said so. It's not a language that all sectors can understand, and therefore it's not really, I think, civilized, decent, and moral discourse, supposedly coming from civilized and moral. Yes.
Yeah. Share ko lang kung bakit yung Catholic Church hindi nila ginagawa yung explicit na explanation na bakit yun ang paniniwala nila. The basis of the Catholic Church in their philosophy is natural law, based on Aquinian, tapos supported by a Platonic ideal of the existence of truths. So basically, their point of view is not reachable by all people. And once they do introduce that into the public field, they are opening themselves to a very wide range of philosophical attacks that they cannot defend. And that's the reason why they're doing that. And on a political perspective, based on what I understand, is that the Catholic Church is afraid of the increasing amount of non-belief within the Catholic Church and the rise of other kinds of belief within the Christian sector, specifically the rise of Protestantism, the rise of kinds of Protestant faiths that appeal to the youths. So, in terms of power, they are losing their hold on the minds of the people, and that's what they're doing right now. And the reason why politicians cannot outright combat these churches is that they rely on the churches and the people who support them for their votes. And the moral dilemma for all Filipino activists is that the church has been traditionally left, and they are in terms of movements, EDSA, like this, that the church has played a very strong part there. That is why a resolution to this on RH bill is so hard to reach, is because both sides are very much dependent on the church. That's all.
That's very true, but just that to point out, when we argue this issue with our policymakers, politicians, the good news is the support is holding steady in Congress. Enough people are going to vote to pass it up to now, but this is always, we've been at this for 7 years, so there's always the last minute problem. But the support is holding steady, and one of the reasons it's steady is, you know, the polls. The polls say that that a majority of Filipinos want reproductive health, the majority of Filipinos know of the bill and support the bill. There's also some studies that we've done in the past that is not so well known, that all those who supported the bill in the past, like Senator Jackson, Geri, and Estrada-Claudio, they've not lost the re-election bid. So the threat of the church is not that great anymore. I also think it's losing a lot of soft power through the 7 years that we've been fighting there. But you are quite right about the progressive view of the church. And that has also a lot to do with the machismo of the progressive left in the country, which those of us who are also in the progressive left that have a gender perspective are very hard working on, and it's getting a little better.
My question is, so what do you think? Do you think the RH bill will pass, or will it take more time again? And follow-up question, does that bill include the abortive act, the RU 432, is it?
Paraiso?
Yeah, Paraiso.
Okay. No, one of the other lies about what the church keeps saying is it's an abortive passion, it's an abortion bill. The bill doesn't change the current penal code on abortion, which is, by the way, one of the most restrictive bans on abortion in the world. And we are one of the, talk about a theocracy. We are one of 2 countries in the world that doesn't have divorce, the other country being Malta. You know, only Greece here in Malta. The other part is, the other one is we're one of a diminishing number of countries where the ban on abortion is absolute. Supposedly, you can have it for the threat to the life of the mother, but it doesn't happen in reality, and many people observe it as absolute. Interesting thing about that too is that we are joined in this group of 11 nations na lang yata na walang exceptions to the rule of abortion by such progressive countries like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan under the Taliban, you know, places like that. Really cool democratic countries. So, you know, so it doesn't. RU486 never got manufactured here because of the opposition of the church. It's not available. And of course, the reason why the church opposes this bill is they say it's an abortion bill, not just because they have a very weird view of when life begins and what an abortive fashion is. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Supposing the bill gets passed into law, what would be its repercussions to the church? Do you think the church would still be able to use its strong arm tactics to force